All right. Hello, everybody. As Glenn said, I'm Daniel Davidson. I'm the director of CNRG and Research Computing. Some people call us Synergy. That was by accident, but I'll claim it. Yeah, I'm your IT director in the building. What is it that CNRG does in the building? The easiest way I've ever described it to people is we're responsible for everything in the building that uses electricity that isn't raw power. So if you've got a problem with your power outlet, that's not us. If you've got a problem with the light switch, that's most likely not us. If there's anything else that has electricity going to it in general, that kind of falls underneath my hat. So we do the desktop, the server, and the AV support. That's where we interface with the most people, is supporting those items. We also do consulting. We'll go through that a little bit deeper later. We do the networking in the building. We historically have done all of the networking in the building, but very soon, and I can't tell you how long very soon is, it might be months, we will be moving to campus wireless. So we'll not be running our own wireless network in the building anymore. We'll be on the campus. It should go well. We've had some issues with how campus did their wireless networking in the past, which is why we've always run our own. Campus has decided to take our concerns into consideration, and now we're going to be moving to campus wireless with this next iteration. So we do the server and the desktop backups for everybody. We also do a lot of programming. We're also in charge of IT security for the building, which is at times a big thing. And we also do the video conferencing support and some more. I'm going to jump around a little bit today, but I just want to talk about some of our services that we offer and what they can do for you. Our desktop backup service, recently in the last year, we've moved from a software called CrashPlan to another software called Carbonite. This is because CrashPlan decided to stop offering their on-premise solution. And there were some legal considerations that kept us from backing up people's computers to the cloud. So now that we have Carbonite in place, it's like CrashPlan, free to the IGB residents. It backs up data constantly. So if you had a file on your computer for 15, 20 minutes and then you accidentally delete it, chances are that with Carbonite, you'll be able to get it back if you need to. It doesn't have a very high usage of your computer after the initial backup. So initially, whenever we have to copy everything off of your laptop or desktop, that can take a little while and it can take a few resources. But once it's going, it's just always moving little files usually. You can restore your files to anywhere. One example I like to mention, this was with CrashPlan, but it would work very much the same as Carbonite. We had a faculty member who had to give a presentation in England. And he took his laptop to the airport and he worked on it. And right before he got on his plane, his laptop battery died. And his laptop was just DOA. There's nothing that could be done. He was able to restore via CrashPlan his talk that he had just finished 5-10 minutes before to his phone. He hopped on his plane, flew all the way to England, got to the place where he was at, and he could present off of his phone. And he basically gave his whole talk off of his phone at that conference. So it can really save your bacon. It's free, so we really recommend everybody who's part of the IGB to use Carbonite now. We give everybody 800 gigabytes of space per user. That doesn't sound like a lot, but we do deduplication on the files, and this is also compressed data. So we compress the data you put in there. So it's actually usually more than what most laptops have on there, with that 800 gigs of space. It's not for personal data. We don't need your MP3 collection. We don't want pictures of your kids doing stuff, or movies of your kids doing stuff. We don't need your cat pictures. It's also not for servers. Like I mentioned, we give every system 800 gigabytes of space. Servers will chew through that data in a heartbeat. So we don't want to use it for servers. And it works anywhere. It'll work in the IGB. It'll work when you're at home. It'll work when any place you have a network connection. It will start trying to back you up wherever you are. So anyway, that's our desktop backup and / Carbonite service. Server backups, we do those too. That's done for free on systems that are managed by us. These backups start every evening at 6 p.m. So if you have a file on any of our servers at 6 p.m., by the time you get here the next morning, we should have a copy of that data on tape. It doesn't cause a lot of load on the servers after the initial backup. As many of you saw, we backed up we switched the file server over about a week ago. So right now the file server is taking a long time to back up because we're having to copy everything off of the file server onto tape. We're about halfway through that process. But once that's done, it's usually very quick. And we use an open source program called Bacula to do this. They got some very funny Dracula humor there on their website. It's not for personal data. The university is kind of a stickler about people backing up their pictures and videos and stuff, so we don't want that. You don't want your W-2 sitting around on our stuff. Also, that can be bad. It's only for servers or machines with large amounts of data that doesn't change rapidly. If you do have data that you need to back up that changes rapidly, I'm not saying we can't back it up. I'm saying we need to have a conversation about it because we need to design a solution that's different than what we kind of have as a standard to meet that requirement. Just mentioned the file server. We recently upgraded it. It can now hold 273 terabytes of data. Not on here, but part of this upgrade is we now have snapshots available on the file server. This is not a backup, but it might feel like a backup to you. Say you put a file on the file server and you accidentally delete it a day later. Well, every night at 11:50, we make a snapshot of the file server, which means we take a picture of what the data looks like at that point in time. And you can go into those snapshots and then yourself copy data out of there and into your other directories again. So say if you deleted a file that was on there as of the last snapshot, you can go into the last snapshot directory. It's distributed. The snapshots are all labeled by the day that the snapshot was created. You can go into a day where you know that file existed. You can find that file in there and copy it out and put it elsewhere. These snapshots exist on the file server for 10 days right now. That number might change. We're just now looking to see what we've gotten ourselves into with this. But we think this will be a nice and easy way for people to self-recover their data if they accidentally delete it. Snapshots are not backups. What the snapshots do, whenever you write data to a disk, it puts it in a place. And whenever you delete it, usually what happens is the file system just forgets where it put the data, and that's how it deletes it. What a snapshot does is it keeps that information about where that data was, and also prevents other data from overwriting it for 10 days or until we delete the snapshot. And then once the snapshot is deleted, it's gone. And that also doesn't help you in case like the disk goes bad or anything like that. So we have two things. We have the snapshots and we have our tape backups in case we have a big failure. Every user gets 50 gigabytes of data for their home folder. This is nice for like little research things that you have that are kind of only for you. Each theme's allocated 20 terabytes, which is kind of where we expect most groups to put all their data on the file server. We have other shared directories available, so like if there's a project that doesn't fit neatly into a single theme, we can make another directory for that. We don't want you to run programs on here. That's what Biocluster's for. You can also put web pages in your home directory. We have a guide on how to make like a personal home page in your home directory. And whenever you get an IGB account, this is automatically created for you. But if you want to access the file server through Windows or Mac sharing, you have to connect to the campus VPN to do that. No internet provider routes this information anymore outside of their local networks. So if you do want to access it, you can either use SSH to access it directly, or you have to connect to the VPN first and connect to it just like you were in the building. I mentioned Biocluster. We're currently moving from Biocluster 2 to Biocluster 3. We're about 30% of the way through this. It's going much slower than what I would like, but we're moving at least a couple of labs a week. Biocluster is meant to be a low-cost storage and computing platform. We really try to tailor Biocluster to what the computation needs of the IGB and our associated users require. That helps keeps our costs low, and it also gives us a separate niche really from what the campus cluster is meant to fill. It's a fee-based system, and I'll go into those fees a little bit later. It uses a program from IBM called GPFS to store data, and an open source program called Slurm to schedule those to schedule any of the computation you need to submit there. What GPFS does, so right now the most drives I can order in a box and fit in our racks are 45. So that kind of limits how big your storage system can be if you only have one 45 terabyte box. But with GPFS, the way the storage system works is we have 10 45 terabyte or 45 drive boxes that all work together to make a replicated file system that looks like one box of storage to you. And if we have issues like we had last week where we had one of our RAID arrays fail, while we're working to recover that, it didn't affect the rest of the GPFS for everybody else. It kept running. We asked people not to overload it because it was kind of sick. But we were able to recover it, and nobody lost any jobs or anything. Well, we still had people who had jobs running on the cluster for 12 days whenever we got everything back up and running again. So there's that's what the replicated storage is. The replicated storage allows us to lose one of those 10 machines and everybody keep on working. So we got 2.4 petabytes of storage there. We also have Jupyter Hub available on Biocluster if anybody is familiar with that. It's available if you need it. Several types of computing resources. We have private computing resources also. We have a module system that manages all of our software centrally. So you don't need usually to install software that you need to run. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of software packages already installed on Biocluster. And if you need anything extra, you just have to email us and we'll get it installed for you. We also try to teach classes on Biocluster quarterly. My group is a little understaffed at the moment, so we're kind of running behind on those classes. But I still hope to teach one more this spring before the end of the semester. And if you want to get more information on Biocluster, there's a link to find out more about it. Our pricing structure, these prices were approved by or mandated by campus through an audit a few years ago. So these are what they are. Everything's listed as a core a day, even though we charge just by the second. Because that's such a small number that nobody knows what it is when you look at it. So if you use one core of the normal queue for half a day, that would only cost you about 60 cents. Because we actually charge by the second. So we have different types of systems. Normal is meant for higher memory things. Low mem is meant for lower memory things. GPU systems if you need it. The GPU hardware is something we're looking to upgrade before July 1 of this year. And our storage is $8.75 a terabyte a month. And that's actually going to go down a little bit whenever we finally finish the Biocluster 3 transition. And also, every time I get a chance to say this, data on Biocluster is not backed up. If you have your only copy of your very important data on it is only on Biocluster, you are doing something wrong. You need to put that data somewhere else if it's important. BioArchive, this would be the someplace else that if it's an important location, is meant to be a low-cost, long-term storage solution. Again, it's fee-based, and if you look at the duration, it's $200 a terabyte for 10 years. So once you put data in BioArchive, it's like a safe deposit box. It's there and it's safe for a long period of time. Primarily, this is designed so that whenever a grant is done and you need to keep all the results from this grant for a long period of time in case anybody wants to look at it, BioArchive is meant to be a place where you can pay to store that data at the end of a grant. It's a disk-to-tape system, so it actually stores data on tapes. If you remember back in movies, you see these reel-to-reel tape machines. It's not quite like that. They're smaller now. The tapes are, what would I call them? If you remember what an 8-track tape looked like, they look a lot like an 8-track tape nowadays. And they hold a lot of data, but they also almost never fail. So that allows us to store data for a long period of time with a low chance of failure. We actually, whenever you copy data into the system, it puts it onto 2 different tapes. One tape that's kept in the tape library itself so that you can get it whenever you need it. The other tape is sent off to an off-site tape storage facility in Rantoul. It's actually in an old Cold War era aircraft bunker at the old Air Force Base there. So your data is very safe there. And that way, if a tornado hits Madigan Lab, which is where BioArchive is located, you're not going to lose all your data. We can get it back. It has virtually unlimited capacity. The more data that we put in the system, I just buy more tapes, and it's fine. You can access it through Biocluster, or there's a piece of software called the Eon browser that you can put on your computer that lets you upload and download. It is highly reliant on the speed of your network connection. So if you're at a bad connection at your mom and dad's house and you're trying to upload and download files, your results may not be great. But if you're in a place with good networking, you can move stuff on and off of your laptop pretty easily. You can access this data anytime. You don't need to talk to us to get it. And if you want to know more about it, there's a URL there to access our help pages on that. Jumping around a little more, I just mentioned networking. We have some really good networking in this building, quite possibly the best on campus. And I would throw in CSA into that category when I say the best on campus. We have redundant 10 gigabit per second connections to the campus network, which basically means we can put 20 gigabits of networking out to campus if we had to. We also have a single 100 gigabit connection to the campus research network. This is important because if you're moving large amounts of data, especially with other organizations, you have to go through the campus firewall if you're on the regular network, which can really slow your transfers down. If you have terabytes of data to move, like we just announced a partnership with the Chan Zuckerberg, what was it? The Biohub, that's right, last week. And I guarantee you they're going to be using this 100 gigabit connection to move data from here to Chicago. That's just going to be part of it. And if they were to send it through the regular public network, it would take them significantly longer to do that. So by being on the research network, you bypass the campus firewall and that bottleneck there. We also have redundant 10 gigabit connections to your access layer switches. Whenever you plug in a network jack, that's an access layer switch that you're connecting to. And those then connect to our core switches. You have a 1 gigabit connection to your desktop. In the server room, we have 1, 10, 40, 50, and 100 gigabit connection, 100 gigabit networking there. And the core facilities in most places have 10 gigabit networking on their desktops or on their instruments. What's a common thing that almost everybody in the building uses eventually is the poster printing service we have. It's another fee-based service, so it's not for free. Your cost for your poster depends on the size of the poster, the paper used, the finishing options. Normally, we complete posters in 3 days when you submit them to there. If you're running late and you want to pay an extra $20 to get it done in a day, you can submit it as a rush order. We have various paper options from glossy to matte to a rather popular one that's kind of a fabric, so you could fold it up and put it into a suitcase. So there's all sorts of options there. If you need to laminate it, we can do that. If you want to put it on foam board so that it kind of stays up and won't flop around any if you're putting it on an easel or something, we can do that as well. And there's a link to access the information about the poster printer. Sometimes people come to us and ask about web hosting. I already mentioned you could have a little website in your home directory of the file server. If you've got some sort of an organization or some sort of a project that needs something a little more dedicated, we offer that as well, and this is for free. We also have, so you can design this with straight HTML if you're into that. If you want to use Drupal, we offer that. There's also a wiki software called Bookstack that's turning out to be quite popular that we offer. All of those are options you can have. If you need to design a web application, that has to go through an approval process first, so that we're confident that your application won't cause the server to crash. But that's available also. And we also have a database server, which we call Biodatabase. If you notice, we just shove bio in front of whatever we have, and that's kind of our naming mechanism for everything. That is available if you need to use a database server for anything. One of the things I'm most passionate about right now that we're working on is this new data management initiative we have. I talked about this exclusively in the last lunch of the Corps I talked to. So this is a new service in development here. We don't really know what it's going to look like or exactly how it's going to work, but we're getting started on it. It's free, although we're asking people to include it in new grants, especially the larger ones. The goal of this new initiative is to ensure that data is safe and sound and being stored correctly. A lot of this is following your data management plan. What we have noticed is there are a lot of data management plans in the building that just aren't being followed right now. It's something that we need to do. Taking care of your data is kind of one of the things that I want IGB to be known for, and we're not really doing that right now. We want to help people predict what their costs are going to be in the future also. We want to help them write their data management plans, storing their data in the best formats. There are a number of projects in the building right now that store their data in thousands and thousands of files. In some cases, even millions of files. And they're very small. So think of it as like a million pictures of a beehive. And then in each of those million pictures of the beehive gets a program run on it, and it creates a separate text file. So you have millions of pictures and millions of text files, and every time you open and close those files to examine them, that takes a little bit of time. And it's just super inefficient. It goes very slowly. It causes you to use more disk space than you need. It causes you to use more CPU time than you need. So what we're out to do is there's ways to get around that. And what we are looking to do through this data management initiative is to bring the security of knowing that your data is taken care of well, and also implementing best practices to avoid that large number of file issue like I just mentioned and other things. And we're also going to be looking at using all available campus resources to get the best solutions. My group has gotten a bit of a rap in the past of trying to do everything ourselves. And that's not something we're really looking to do here. What we're looking to do is to take the best solution for your problem and try to pair your research with that best solution. I mentioned earlier also I'd talk about the consulting part of what we do. We're here to help you find answers to your challenges, and this is very much kind of like what the data management thing is. The questions like, what services do you use? Do you have a program that's not working quite right? You have a program that's running really slow. You don't know what computer you need to buy. You don't know what Biocluster queue to use. you need help writing a program or hosting a system, these are all things that we can help with. We may not be able to do it for you, but we can at least help you get started down the road to what you need to do to get your problem resolved. Getting towards the end here, we also offer a virtual machine service. So this is something that we often suggest to people when they come to us for consulting. So when you want to need your own computer, but you don't need to buy an entire machine, a server nowadays usually runs between $7,500 and $10,000 for a very simple server. So if you can share that machine with other people, it usually is a significant cost savings. So we've started this virtual machine service. We've got about 20 virtual machines in it right now. We bill on this yearly. We're probably going to have to change that to monthly eventually, but for now we bill on it yearly. If you need sudo access, so you can do root type stuff on your system. If it's a VM, we let you do that. For standalone machines, we don't. And then I have a little breakdown of what it costs per system. So if you needed one CPU with 2 terabytes of RAM and 100 gigabytes of storage, you could do the math on that and find out it comes out to around $500 or so a year. So it's not very expensive. I wanted to talk about our audio, AV stuff and video conferencing. One, if you have any issues with the AV in the building, please let us know. Oftentimes we find out that people have been struggling with problems with these systems for weeks and no one has just bothered to tell us. If you've got a problem, let us know about it. We'll resolve it. So we're responsible for maintaining it. If you've noticed, there's a few places where we also have Solstice boxes in the building, and these allow you to present wirelessly. Room 3000 is probably the one that most people come into contact with that has a Solstice box in it right now. I'm very interested to know if people like it or hate it, because we're trying to find out if we want to put these in other rooms in the building. We recently completed upgrades to all the conference rooms, but right now it feels like we're never really done upgrading the conference rooms. We're looking at upgrading the screens to something newer and better in there also. If you also want to have training on how to use the conference room or how to use any of this hardware or software that you need for a video conference, we're open to do that as well. And this really isn't a CNRG thing, but this is important to everybody. Campus is doing this big Skype to Microsoft Teams transition right now. This is scheduled to happen on May 17th. So it's already getting close to the middle of March, so 2 months away and some change. It's coming relatively quickly. This is supposed to be a week-long intensive transition. The week of May 17th, if you need to make a phone call, you might have trouble doing that. Bring your cell phone to work week is what I'm calling it, because you might not be able to get a hold of anybody. Nearly every phone in the building will have to be replaced by May 15th. That's a big job. We have started and we've sent some links out to certain parts of the building to try to figure out what we need to do in advance. And we're trying to get that, to assess that. The Skype for Business app will no longer work if you use that to make a phone call on your computer right now. As of May 17th, that should not work. And you will have to use Teams for that going forward. I've had people asking, does this mean we can't use Zoom anymore? You can still use Zoom. You just can't make Zoom to dial your phone. So if you need to make a phone call somewhere, or you can't use Skype for Business to make a phone call anymore. So you would then need, as of May 17th, you would then need to use Teams to make your phone call. You can still use Zoom. You can still use Slack, just like you use it today. It's just your phone number is associated with a different piece of software. Like I said, we're assessing what phones need to be purchased. We'll get out more news when we get it. We have gotten a ridiculously inadequate response from campus on all of the information we need to get this done. I think that they have set a date and then we're marching towards it and we don't really know what we're walking into. So we will find out when we get there. We still have no official start date for Teams or end date for Skype. I have heard this May 17th date list several times. No one has written it down anywhere. It's just being told by word of mouth. So that's it written down so you at least know what might be coming. And with that, that's all I have for today. I didn't use the whole time, but if you have any questions, I would love to hear them. Yeah.
With the Teams, if your computer has the ability to have mic and audio, could you then just use your computer as your phone?
Yeah. Yeah. We also have headsets that are available for free for people who are in the IGB. So if you need a headset, you can just come down and get one from us whenever. If nobody has any questions for me, I will ask questions for you. That's a warning. Okay, so here's a question from me. What's everybody's biggest frustration with computing in the IGB? See, no one expected me to ask a question. But this is a question that I ask myself all the time, and this is if you have something that is frustrating or something you wish was different, we want to know about it. Because there's often something we can do about it if we knew about it. I understand that us not being on campus wireless has been a bit of a frustration for people for a period of time. I can also say that if we didn't run our own, the people who give us lots and lots of money to do research, who are not part of a federal organization, they would have been really frustrated, and that was our number one holdback there. So, like, if you have issues that are a source of frustration, things that you think can make your life easier, we want to know about it. I'm not saying we'll do it. I'm not saying we can do it right away, but I can say that we'll talk about it and maybe put it on the list. Yeah.
Just a comment. I'm new here.
Yeah.
And I had an issue with the antivirus in my computer.
Mm-hmm.
The question was, the IT pays for some software to protect, because the information was you should get something free, and I just make a scan in my computer
Mm-hmm.
with a free software, but I was really concerned about
Okay. So I can answer that question. The University of Illinois used to have a license for McAfee antivirus, and this ended about 5 years ago. And the reason it ended about 5 years ago is because the Microsoft antivirus that comes with Windows is considered by campus to be good enough. So nobody's paying for that anymore because it's built into Windows. If you have a problem, one thing that we recommend people do is download Malwarebytes. There is a free version of Malwarebytes that if we put it on everybody's computer, we would get in trouble for violating the license agreement for that. But if you choose to download it on your computer, we are not violating the license agreement for the free version. So that's why it's that way. We wish it wasn't. We've talked to Malwarebytes about getting a license. It is an insane amount of money for the amount of people we have in the building, like over $100,000. And we just don't have the budget for that. So we're going to follow the campus. We follow the campus guidelines on that. There is also oh good grief, what's the name of that software? There is also a campus package, security package that they have available that is not an antivirus, but what it is a like intrusion protection system. And I can't remember the name of it right now. But that's available also. There are a lot of people who don't want that on their computers, though. Because literally every whenever you put this on your computer, there's another computer on campus that knows every website you visit. And it can be accessed via the Freedom of Information Act. So say if somebody wanted to research how many people on campus visit CNN versus Fox News, with their computers, like that information is available, and they could maybe even track it down to you. So that's kind of something that there's a lot of people on campus who are very hesitant on. Anything else for me?
You know, in general, for the university as a whole, not just IGB, if there's a cost associated with moving the phones from the Skype capability to Teams.
So is there a cost? The cost for moving a phone from Skype to Teams. So there's several costs that are involved in there. If you have a standalone phone like on your desk, that phone won't work anymore, more than likely. There are a very small percentage of phones that would work with both systems. So you're going to have to get a new phone that's going to cost you anywhere from $100 to $200, depending on what type of phone you need. If you aren't using a phone, then campus had to purchase the Teams license instead of something else. So that's a cost as well. So campus has had to buy into Teams. Campus is having to buy the plugins into Teams that allow us to use it for phone calls and stuff. The funny thing is we've been paying to make phone calls with Teams for a year. We just can't turn it on yet because that would break everything. That would be a rough transition going from Skype to Teams there. So that's what's going on there.
Is it more expensive to buy a standalone phone than a headset?
Yes, by far. A headset's $20-$30. A standalone phone is if you have a Windows machine and you can plug your phone into your Windows machine, it's like $100. If you have a Mac or a Linux machine, or you need a phone that doesn't plug into your computer, then that's $200, roughly speaking. Yes.
So with this, so I have a phone on my desk. I have a touch screen here, so I don't think the rare times we get phone calls will ring to my computer, but not only when I'm in the building, but when I'm at home, working at home, which I really like.
Mm-hmm.
I assume that's also going to happen with.
Yes, that will happen with Teams just the same as it does in Skype for Business right now.
So in that survey, because I've been at home the last 2 days
Mm-hmm.
to do the phone survey because I didn't know what my phone looked like. So we won't necessarily need to have a phone?
You don't need to have a phone. You don't even need to have a phone right now. What we're looking at is who needs a phone and who wants a phone, and then we're going to do a pass to see, all right, do you really need a phone? And then after that, we'll start getting those deployed. Probably the beginning of May is when we'll start passing them out. Yes?
With that system, because I noticed that when I traced it to use the IGB disk space, there used to be a hyperlink on the IGB core facility website that you can access IGB disk space by clicking that. It used to be go to the file-server, but now when we click it asks people to go to report that.
Yes. So I can explain that. So you guys use a lot of data. And I mentioned in here that the file server was 273 terabytes of data. There was also a period of time when the core facilities was putting data on there, and that number was getting very high, very fast. So what we have now is we have a separate machine with the core facility to put the data on. What was also happening is we had a number of people who were using the core facility who weren't IGB members and were storing data on the IGB's file server. And when I say they were storing data, I'm not talking about a couple gigabytes of data. I'm talking about tens of terabytes of data. And we had to have conversations where we basically said, hey, you guys aren't even IGB members. Put your data elsewhere. So that's why the workflow changed. So the workflow has changed to we've built the core server for Glenn. If you need to put your data on a machine, it's going to go to the core server. Eventually, you will start being charged for putting your data on the core server for Glenn. We have promised too many times to start billing on that and not met any of our deadlines. But it will happen eventually. And that's how this whole program's going. This is kind of how it's going to work going forward. The core server is not meant to house your data for the long term. It's supposed to be it's supposed to flow from your instrument to the core server to its permanent home. The core server is supposed to just be kind of a waygate there. And if you need a place to store it long term, BioArchive is great for that. But the thing is that, you know, it's not easy to, while BioArchive is easy to use, you can't do any computation or anything on it. You have to put data, you have to copy it over and copy it back. That's the only thing you can do with it. You can't just access it there. So that's kind of where you get into moving it to another server, or moving it to the file server, if that's an option for you or whatever. Anybody else? All right.
Next week, we will not have lunch with the